Hello, friends, and welcome to our dry studio where we're bringing you today's Happy Half Hour Training Camp Daily Edition. It's a mess out there.
Yeah, us being dry right now is not par for the course today. That may be the most drenched I've gotten at a football practice ever. And I used to live in Florida.
Yeah, for the old heads around here who remember the Jacksonville preseason game where people were sitting knee-deep in water in the seating bowl, it was like that out there today. Yeah. It was a mess. But hopefully...
You know what? It wasn't hot.
Hopefully you are enjoying this someplace dry. Hopefully you have maintained a safe posture throughout the day. You're not driving around looking at videos like you millennials apparently do a lot of. Just remember,
we're multitaskers.
Brad Panovich's first law, turn around, don't drown. Your car is not a boat. That being said, they had to practice some ball in that, and it was damp. It just kept on all day long.
I think I actually said this in an article today, but like deluge was a light word. It was not, that didn't even do it justice. It was a pretty hard rain. No storms, thankfully, so they were able to still practice as usual. There was no lightning in the area or anything like that. But it was a slow-moving cell that just kind of got right over uptown Charlotte and sat.
And sat on top of it.
And sat for about the hour and 40 minutes that they practiced. That was the hardest period of rain I think we've had today. It was during that time. But as Canales said afterwards, you know, this is a lot of good experience for what we could face early in the season, given some of the storms. I mean, we're in the middle of hurricane season right here. You know, we're close enough to the Atlantic coast and the Gulf for that to kind of affect this area. Jacksonville, week 1, it could either be hot or rainy, but it's going to be one of those two.
It's going to be
one.
And
they've had both of those in training camp to kind of deal with. But yeah, it was a wet day, but guys were having fun. You know, I don't know if I've ever heard Lathan Ransom as loud in a practice as he was today. That man likes playing in the rain.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously it makes the ball a little slippery. It makes everything a tiny bit more difficult. But it also is when you see these guys kind of become kids again and just get out there and have fun.
Yeah, Matt, show them what it looked like out there on the field. I mean, when T-Mac's running around out there, that doesn't even do it justice.
And that's only because that's a really good camera that is picking up T-Mac.
That's right. There are 3 heroes out here I want to shout out right out of the top. Beginning with Don Toner and the equipment staff, who had everything they needed to be out there on that practice field today. Number 2, Danny Lucido and the grounds crew. Those guys have done an incredible job. The 2 grass practice fields out back were in perfect shape. They drain well. There's probably some divots. Sorry about that, Danny. They didn't come from me, in case anybody asks. But those guys did a great job. And hero level 3 was Alex Harco, Andrew Stein, and all our videographers who are out there on the field getting these shots. There's so much cool stuff. Rain just makes for dramatic art.
It does.
And we had people out there collecting it. But the football, football got a little loose every now and then. It's not great for catching balls and that kind of stuff, but those guys were out there having fun, whether it was Lathan Ransom. I just think it kind of got to a point where they're just playing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you're a kid and jumping in puddles and stuff. I just think there's something primal about playing in those kind of conditions that brings out the fun element of this thing, in addition to it being really hard work and super important, of course.
You know, I've talked about this here and there. I lived for 10 years in Central Florida, which is very, very Florida, jungly Florida. You know, a lot of Spanish moss and palm trees and stuff like that. And then lived in Green Bay for a couple of years. And I was walking out to practice this morning, and I kind of just like stopped and smelled the air. There's a very specific smell, and as somebody who grew up in Alabama, I smelled it a lot. There's a very specific
smell to Alabama. Yes, I concur.
I saw your face and I knew something was coming. There's a very specific smell of a summer storm coming through the pine trees. And you could smell it walking out to practice this morning. And I was like, this is going to be a fun day. It was a wet one too. But guys adjusted. They rolled with it. And they got through practice. You know, like you said, that makes the ball a little slippery. Canales compared it to trying to trap a greased pig when you're dealing with the wet ball out there in conditions like that. But it made for a fun day.
Yeah, it was a good time. Everybody's splashing around in puddles like a bunch of little kids.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that's what these guys are, and that's why we enjoy this so much, because everybody was having a good time. It's going to be a little different tomorrow, however, because it's still going to rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going to be wet in Charlotte. So, again, be careful out there. But our dear personal friends, the Cleveland Browns, are coming to join us out here. And I hope they brought their water wings, maybe a life jacket or something to go along with their pads and helmets, because they're going to get wet too.
Yeah. Canales said that Kevin Stefanski texted him this morning and said, "So I see the forecast says it's going to rain for the next 37 days or something like that." And that sounds about right. Again, it won't be hot, but, it does make some choices have to come up for, who might be out there, who might not. And that's going to be a case again tomorrow as well. But they're going to be out there as long as it's not lightning. They can practice in the rain. It's like the old amusement park rule. As long as the roller coaster's running, everything's fine. So as long as it's not lightning, they can stay out there. And what does that do, though? Because joint practices are more intense just by nature of the law.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that balance out? Because like we said, they had a lot of fun out there today. They were laughing. They were jumping around. They were making splashes. How did those conditions tomorrow balance against a much more intense competitive practice with a different team?
The one thing I know about joint practices, having seen a handful of them in my day, is if it's really, really hot, they're going to be a fight.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to refocus everybody and remind them that, this is about working on the football. Austin Corbett was great talking about that. Austin's reached old head status, and he still knows a handful of those guys in Cleveland since they're the team that drafted him many moons ago. But he was talking about, listen, man, it's about the work. It's about let's get some good practice in against somebody else, and let's get to Friday night when that game is. So it's going to be interesting. But Dave Canales did say, and this doesn't have anything to do with the rain and the weather and the conditions, he did say probably leaning toward holding Derek Brown out of practice tomorrow. That's got more to do with that little oblique rib thing he's got going on. He said, when Derek gets in there and starts throwing people around, as Derek Brown is wont to do, you don't want him aggravating something like that. Because the one thing about Derek is, and they almost have to protect him from himself sometimes, that cat knows one speed. And so if you tell him, all right, Derek, you can practice, but don't go ahead. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. There is Derek Brown speed, period. He doesn't have gears.
And he got a good bit of work today.
Yeah, he probably did more work on the field today in team sections than we've seen him previously. They've been kind of easing him into it because of the knee and because he's Derek Brown. I mean, he's one of those guys, I think, as we talk about the game on Friday night. And to recap, in case you missed us last week, which if you did, what's wrong with you? Starters are going to play Friday night against the Browns. Dave wants to get them out there, get them a little run. That doesn't mean every starter is going to be out there. I mean, cats like Derek Brown, cats like Taylor Moton, I don't think we're necessarily expecting Friday night against the Browns. So, especially in Taylor's case, he's probably going to practice tomorrow, so get a look at him. Against a real, the Browns got some dudes on the other side of the ball. So
I am curious, and I wanted to go look to see if Myles Garrett would practice tomorrow.
I am not as tuned into that. I'm working very hard to stay as focused as I can on one football team. It's almost like everything during training camp, anything that happens outside of this building and the footprint of this place is lost to me. It's like, whatever, Love Island, whatever TV show you people are watching now, nothing. I have no idea.
Well,
anything.
The Myles Garrett thing came into my mind today because he will be here tomorrow.
All right.
And so that, now I want to know, what is the offensive line going to get to face tomorrow?
We will check in with our dear personal friend Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland Plain Dealer, who we love.
Did
MK.
you watch her acceptance speech last week?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did. And
if you haven't watched it, go watch it. That's all we'll say.
You absolutely should. MK's a legend. Looking forward to seeing her and all our old friends in the media, but also just want to see what it looks like against another team.
Yeah.
I mean, right now we know what the Panthers look like going against each other. We've got a pretty good idea of T-Mac versus JC and Mike Jackson. Mike talked today about, most teams have a big corner and a little corner, and you get some kind of contrast. Well, the Panthers got two big ones.
Right.
And so we've seen what T-Mac looks like against those two guys. Let's see what he looks like against somebody else's.
Yeah.
Let's see what that offensive line looks like against a pretty talented Browns defensive front. Yeah. And I just think that competition is something, it's a good checkpoint to see. you can kind of fool yourself every now and then when you're practicing against your own. But when you start going against other people, you get into preseason games, that's when you get a better sense. A couple of years ago when the Jets were here, you kind of figured out then, that defense is giving a lot of people trouble, but it was giving the Panthers a lot of trouble that day. And that was one of those things that kind of came to pass early on in that season. So it'll be good competition. It'll be good to see what it looks like against somebody else. But before we get to that, I want to circle back to Saturday night. It's FanFest. First of all, if you weren't there, what's wrong with you? It was a great night. Weather was perfect. It might have drizzled a little early on, but nothing like what we're dealing out there today. And good time was had by all. Fans were into it. I mean, players have talked since then about how excited they were to hear people excited for them because it's been a minute. I mean, the Panthers got on a little run into last year, but then you've been away from everybody for a little bit. And this is the first time they've been in front of people, and I think they wanted to show off a little bit. And they were kind of digging on the energy they got back from the people.
Yeah, they did show off to the point that there was one particular moment that really showed off, and we've got to bring it up because Lathan Ransom gave us a peek behind the curtain today. There was a fake punt where Sam Martin threw out to Lathan Ransom, and he ran just about 90 yards, but Jimmy Horn kind of flew in at the last second with a touchdown-saving tackle on a fake, like we said, a fake punt. Lathan said that they came up with that right before FanFest started.
Yeah.
That he said coach, I'm assuming Tracy Smith, should have clarified that, but walked up to him. I was like, let me see your eyes. You got it in your eyes tonight? Like, can you do this? They've never repped it in practice. They literally just went out there to see if it would work and gave the fans a fun moment that really got people going and kind of showed, what this team might be able to do. I think over 40,000 fans were there.
Yep.
It was a good number.
Good crowd. People were fired up. Fireworks, lasers after the fact. Everybody was enjoying that. It was a good show.
And it was a full scrimmage.
Yeah. The football was live, and the football was pretty good, too. That was the other thing that kind of came through. There were a couple moments. Lathan put a hit on T.J. Luther, who, as Dave Canales said, probably going to get some mail from the league on that one. But he's been flying around the last couple of days. I don't think – we've got more coming on him later this afternoon on Panthers.com. But Lathan Ransom's a guy who you can see making some kind of impact on this team, even if it's on special teams. At Ohio State – where he was a captain, he blocked a couple punts in his career. He's been useful on special teams. He's also still in the mix for a starting job. Yeah. I mean, Nick Scott's in there for the time being. Damani Richardson's trying to get his name in there as well, and so is Lathan Ransom. So we'll see how some of that stuff develops. But the real highlight, and I'm going to turn this over to you because you were all over this, to me, one of the coolest things ever, and Matt put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Make-A-Wish kid Jace Garland came to join us Saturday night at FanFest and was one of the most special things we've seen in this stadium in a while.
It really was. And this was the first Make-A-Wish recipient that has requested to do something with the Panthers since 2018. There's been a couple of people that have done it since 2018, but those requests were from 2018. I found out the other night. And so this was a big moment for the organization, and our community relations team, got to give props to them. They went all out on a short notice and kind of made this a day for Jace that far surpassed even his expectations. Jace is from just outside of Asheville, and he was about a year and a half ago diagnosed with a rare blood condition that had developed to the point that it was a precursor to leukemia. And so he received a blood marrow transplant at 11 years old. And it's something that he'll always have, but the hope is that with the transplant, he will be safe from the potential of cancer moving forward. But it's something, obviously, they'll have to monitor for the rest of his life. And his wish that he put in back in April of 2024 was, I want to be quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. And it came about, and they were able to get him here for FanFest on Saturday. He arrived. What was really cool, too, was to see the progression of Jace throughout the day, because he got here and it was clearly very overwhelmed. There was a lot going on. You walk in and there's, Sir Purr and the percussions and the Top Cats, and Ashawn Robinson is moving out of your way so that you can walk down the line for it. It's a lot to take in at once. And he gets inside, and he goes up, and Dave Canales happens to be walking through the lobby. And at this point, Jace didn't even know what he was doing. It was still a surprise. So he was probably really confused when Canales walks over to him and goes, "Okay, we got to play for you. Just remember, like, keep your eyes down. Don't look up till you cross the line." And he's like, I don't know what he's talking about. And that's when he found out he was going to get to be quarterback for the day. So went up, signed a contract with Dan Morgan, and Dan went through the whole contract with him. It was so funny. Dan talked about it being a long-term deal. We're going to pay you a lot of money. General manager talk.
That's right.
We're down on the field getting ready. It's after kickoff, and Jason's sitting on the bench, and I went over and crouched down in front of him, and I was like, "How you feeling?" He's like, "Yeah. Are they really going to pay me money?" I said, "Probably not, buddy, but you get more than what a lot of people could buy."
And it was a day full of events. I mean, he comes in, he signs the contract with Dan. He has a press conference. He meets the team. He goes to the equipment room, gets fitted for helmets and jerseys and all that kind of stuff. He's sitting in meeting rooms with the quarterbacks.
The meeting room.
He got the whole experience.
The meeting room was probably the coolest experience of the day, at least for me, just watching from the side, and I think for Jace as well. Because at that point, it was still, like I said, very, very overwhelming. He goes into the team meeting room. There's 90 guys. There's all the coaches. He has to make the free throw shot, which is something they make every guy do when he joins the team. He makes it, but it's still a lot. And then he goes into the quarterback meeting room, and it's just, him, Bryce, Andy, Jack, Brad Idzik, Will Herringer, and then one of the assistants there, Dean. And that was when he was able to relax for the first time all day and just kind of talk to the guys. And they spent a lot of time just talking to him about life and what was going on and what he liked in school and whatnot. They went over the play with him for that night and what he was going to run. And then he drew up a play as well that Brad told him, but maybe we'll try to get it in week 1. And so they went over that and what he wanted them to do on that play. Right. And we walked out of that room, and I didn't get to include this in the story that we put on Panthers.com. It just never really naturally fit. But I hate it didn't fit because it was such a sweet moment. We walk out of the room, and he kind of stops. He looks up at me, and he goes, "Those guys are really, really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, they are." And I was like, "You know what?" And they think the same thing about you. The best moment of the day, though, was there was some downtime after everything was done, but it was too early to go out to the field. And so Bryce took him back into the team meeting room just to shoot the ball around, which is something Bryce does a lot during downtime. And they're just shooting, and he's asking questions left and right because he's 12 years old, and that's what they do. And then he kind of stopped, and he's like, "This is a dream come true." And Bryce was like, "Me too, man. Me too." It was just a really, really cool moment. And then got to run in the touchdown.
Such a neat thing. And, I mean, he scores a touchdown in front of 40,000 people. They're all cheering for him. I love this picture right here on this screen. I mean, this place, you've heard me go on and on about the mythology of keep pounding, having known Sam Mills, been around when he gave that speech, to know what it means to so many people, both inside this football facility and outside. I mean, that's become a mantra for people at, Atrium Health. I mean, every hospital in 2 states, basically, it's a rallying cry for people who are going through tough stuff. So to see Jace get in here, and listen, he was clearly affected by this. But so was Bryce. Yeah. And so was Andy. And so was Jack. And so was everybody that came in contact with him. So was Tracy Hartman, our chef. I was talking to her today. I said, God bless you for that. I mean, because you could just see everybody was down on one knee making eye contact with Jace throughout the day. It was just such a neat experience for him. And it speaks to the power of what, this is the good. We can play ball games. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. But this right here, that's a difference made in somebody's life.
And it, like you said, it affects the guys, too, and kind of reminds them what's important. And, that at one point they were probably a kid, too, just wanting to play this game. And you never know what life can throw you. Jonathan Brooks, obviously, is still recovering from an ACL, so that means he's not going to play. He spends a lot of time on the sideline watching, so he spent a lot of time with Jace during the quote-unquote game, the scrimmage. That's right. And ran into him today, and I was like, JB, I don't know if you know how much that meant to Jace because he was nervous, but you really, really calmed him down. Yep. And he's like, "Hey, that's my guy now. Like we're bonded." And he's like, I'm really glad I got to sit with him and just kind of hang out with him.
It is super cool. If you haven't read that story yet, I highly recommend it. Kassidy broke down the entire day on Panthers.com. We've got a video version of it on our YouTube channel right now. It truly was one of the cool things. we get to do around
It may
here.
be the coolest day I've had since I've been here.
It is. It's a good thing, and I'm glad that Jason and his family were able to enjoy it. But like I said, I'm glad everybody in this building got to experience something like that too, because it does remind you the impact that it can have on other people. So we will leave you with that. We'll get back to some football tomorrow. It's going to be wet, so be careful out there. Oh, by the way, speaking of, the smartest man in the building today, we found out from Mike Jackson, is rookie wide receiver Teteroa McMillan. Somebody asked Mike Jack about Rookie Talent Show, and he said, I got to tell you, T-Mac's kind of smart. He got up there and started singing gospel, and you can't boo God.
You can't boo God.
So remember that when you're out there driving around in the rain, not watching videos on YouTube, no matter what you're doing behind the wheel. Get your rubber duck, put on your life jacket, be careful out there, and we'll see you tomorrow here on the Happy Half Hour.